Let's dive right into this explainer. May 2026 was, well, it was a month that truly tested America. But to really grasp this turbulent time, we've got to look past all those loud political headlines coming out of Washington. Instead, we're going to zoom right in on a single basement in the Midwest. Today, we're anchoring our focus on one family's incredible survival story. We'll see exactly how extreme weather flipped lives upside down in an instant, and honestly, how the human spirit steps up when literally everything is on the line.
Picture this. You wake up and suddenly 50 million people are under an immediate, massive threat. While folks over in New York's Times Square were just grabbing their morning coffee, the giant screens above them were flashing this terrifying reality for the country's heartland. A massive, extreme tornado and wind alert was completely gripping the Midwest. We are talking about a staggering emergency spanning states like Nebraska, Kansas, and Iowa. Imagine realizing the forecast isn't just, heavy rain, but a life-threatening disaster barreling straight for your living room. Emergency alerts are blaring on phones, schools are locking down, and millions of families are thrust into this incredibly stressful race against the clock just to find safety.
To really feel the weight of that, let's step into the shoes of a 16-year-old kid named Jack. He lives in a small village called St. Libri, Nebraska. All morning, these ominous weather warnings are just echoing across the local stations. By afternoon, the sky turns this unnatural pitch black. Jack and his family scramble down into their basement. Try to put yourself in that confined space for a second. The TV is blaring these high-pitched warnings that a tornado could touch down right on top of them at any second. Jack watches his mom praying fervently, while his dad is frantically scrambling in the dim light to grab important documents and supplies. And then, boom, the power completely fails. They're plunged into total, suffocating darkness. Just minutes later, 0 hour hits.
Sitting in that pitch-black basement, Jack goes through this terrifying sensory assault. He later said it sounded literally like the sky was tearing apart. It wasn't just wind, you guys. It was this monstrous, deafening roar vibrating right through the concrete walls. Up above, the winds were so violently intense that massive, deeply rooted trees were being ripped out of the earth and thrown into the streets. For a 16-year-old who had never seen nature unleashed like this, those 30 minutes in the dark, just listening to the world above being destroyed, absolute terror.
When that deafening noise finally stopped, Jack and his family stepped out into a heartbreaking reality. Thankfully, they were totally unhurt, but their house, half destroyed. Looking down the street, several houses were just unrecognizable ruins. And in that surreal, shocking moment, Jack did exactly what so many teens do today. He pulled out his phone, recorded the sheer devastation around him, and uploaded it to social media. Almost instantly, that video spread like wildfire. Suddenly, millions of people worldwide are watching the devastation of the American heartland through the eyes of this terrified, resilient kid. In a flash, he connected his tiny, devastated town directly to the rest of the world.
Section 2. A Nation on the Edge.
Now, while families like Jack's are standing shell-shocked in the wreckage, the rest of the country is getting hit by storms of a totally different kind. Over in D.C., reporters are swarming the White House. President Trump is prepping for a high-stakes Situation Room meeting about escalating tensions with Iran, with the media sounding the alarm on global security. At the exact same time, the political landscape is shifting hard, with intense internal debates rocking the Republican Party after Senator Bill Cassidy's electoral loss. And Wall Street? The stock market is on a violent roller coaster. Investors are panicking in real time over the infrastructure wiped out in the Midwest, plus those looming international fears. It was a literal perfect storm of political, economic, and global anxiety all playing out on screens while people were just trying to survive a tornado.
Watching all these overlapping crises, a California-based journalist named Anaya put out a special report that absolutely went viral. She completely nailed the deeply unsettled mood of the nation. Her main point was simple but hit the nail on the head. She said that today's America had become a two-faced country. She pointed out that we weren't just one monolithic nation going through a single event. Instead, it was this chaotic mix of rapidly shifting, totally contrasting realities happening at the exact same time. Just look at the stark contrast we were seeing on that exact same day. On one side, you have this unparalleled tech dominance and power. Even with the market going crazy, the artificial intelligence sector was incredibly strong, right? It's being championed as America's greatest asset. But directly opposite that technological triumph is profound vulnerability and struggle. You have extreme climate crises literally tearing through the Midwest, deep political tensions, and this intense growing insecurity. The global leader in AI was at the exact same moment a nation dealing with shattered towns and deeply shaken citizens like Jack. Naturally, this jarring split spilled right over onto the internet, where the public reaction was fiercely divided. On one hand, government critics flooded social media, arguing that the destruction Jack and his neighbors faced was a direct result of leaders failing to take climate change seriously, and they wanted immediate accountability. On the flip side, media skeptics were arguing that the non-stop, breathless coverage of the storms and global tensions was just networks spreading unnecessary fear to pump up their ratings. The internet basically became a massive battleground of perspectives, really highlighting a polarized country desperately trying to process all these overlapping crises.
Section 3. Rebuilding. Resilience in the ruins.
But here's where the story takes a turn. The immediate community response cut right through all that online noise, and honestly, it was nothing short of inspiring. Thousands of people in the Midwest were suddenly homeless, but a local safety net sprang up incredibly fast. Schools that were closed for the storm instantly became temporary shelters. Churches and social groups mobilized on the spot to get critical aid out. And youth volunteers? They showed up in droves. Imagine being a family like Jack's, standing out in the cold, having lost nearly everything, and watching your neighbors physically show up to hand you food and medicine. It's an absolute lifeline. That right there is the hallmark of the human spirit, putting aside the big political arguments to literally stand shoulder to shoulder with your neighbors when it counts.
And as these communities were physically hauling wreckage out of their streets, a calming update actually came out of Washington. The White House committed to diplomatic solutions abroad. It was a really crucial de-escalation of that international anxiety, and it let citizens breathe just a tiny bit easier. For people totally overwhelmed by the physical destruction in their own front yards, having that stability at the national level meant they could finally focus all their energy right where they needed it most: surviving, taking care of their families, and starting that massive, difficult road to recovery. So, as the storm completely passed and that initial adrenaline wore off, Jack was sitting in front of the jagged remains of his house, just quietly staring up at the sky. The scars of the day were literally everywhere, and that's when his dad walked over, put a steady hand on his shoulder, and told him, "The house will be rebuilt, son. The most important thing is that we are alive." Jack smiled, and right at that very moment, somewhere off in the distance, the sun finally started to rise over their devastated but surviving town. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. The events of May 2026 revealed a country wrestling with massive, simultaneous challenges. From extreme weather to fierce political shifts and intense international scrutiny, it was a lot. But Jack's personal journey through that literal storm reminds us of something so fundamental. As the world watches, what actually defines a nation? Is it the literal and figurative storms it gets hit by? The divisions everyone argues over online? Or is it, at the end of the day, its enduring ability to stand back up, support one another, and rebuild together once the worst has passed? It's definitely something to think about, and it's exactly why the world is watching this changing landscape so closely.